Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati on this 94th anniversary of the birth of Martin Luther King Jr. My name is Ramona Beck.
And I am Tim Krause.
Tim and I are your worship leaders this morning. It is important that we acknowledge the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati is located on and has benefited from the stolen ancestral lands of the Adena, Hopewell, Mia, and Shawandasi people.
We do this because we're standing on the shoulders of those who came before us. We side with love, we support each other's learning and spiritual growth.
We serve our wider community and we work for justice, equity, and inclusion. We are glad you are here with us this morning. Welcome. We welcome all, whether in person or virtually. If you would like to learn more about our community and our work, please contact us at member-care@firstuu.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Kudlow. I'm Larry Kudlow. So today we celebrate Martin Luther King Day and the man who delivered one of the most important and famous speeches in American history. And I quote directly, of course, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." End quote.
Tom Cotton wrote, "As the founding fathers said, slavery was the necessary evil upon which the Union was built."
You think about what MLK stood for. He said he didn't want people judged on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character. You listen to some of these people nowadays, they don't talk about that.
Go ahead, yep.
I don't know about you, but every time I hear any white person talking about judging people by the content of their character and not by the melanin in my skin, I feel their fear of change and with a wink and a nod asking me to play nice and accept some kind of white supremacy agenda. Every day of my life, I am judged by the melanin in my skin, and rarely is there opportunity through social connections to demonstrate the content of my character. I live with the content of this country's character year in and year out, and it is stifling and inspiring to never, never, never give up on love that affirms me, my children, our children, and other people like me. And thank you.
But that's got to be painful for you, Ramona, to have to always live knowing that you're being judged by your skin color and not your personality. And it breaks my heart to know that you have to live in an America that does that to you every day. If I were in your place, I would be bitter and angry, and I would be angry all the time. But I know something about you, and you have learned to lead with love everywhere you've been. How in the world do you do that?
Well, I've been well taught by many, many people, and I reflect on a couple of old Black Baptist ministers. One said, "It's hard to run into the arms of a grizzly bear." And another said, "I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it." I reflect on these truths that none are perfect, no, not one. And the uglier the behavior, the more pity and compassion I feel. For if not for the grace of the God of my understanding, there go I. Whether we can accept it or not, we hurt together and we prosper together. As my sister, Adichie Chimamandi, said, there is danger in a single story. Jeffrey Robinson said, slavery is not our responsibility. Slavery is not our fault. It is our shared history. We're in this country together. Yet, as Malcolm said, Sunday morning is the most segregated hour in our country. I shared with one of our sisters in the restroom when I saw her. I feel so very safe, Julia. I'm grateful. Although there are few with the melanin like mine, I am so grateful to feel safe. The separation makes me believe that the fear is real, and it is not. Fear means to face everything and rise. And that's exactly what I feel we are doing at First Church. Thank you.
However, for the good of America, it is necessary to refute the idea that the dominant ideology in our country, even today, is freedom and equality, while racism is just an occasional departure from the norm on the part of a few bigoted extremists. Racism can well be that corrosive evil that will bring down the curtain on Western civilization. Arnold Toynbee has said that some 26 civilizations have risen upon the face of the earth. Almost all of them have descended into the junk heaps of destruction. The decline and fall of these civilizations, according to Toynbee, was not caused by external invasions, but by internal decay. They failed to respond creatively to the challenges impinging upon them. If America does not respond creatively to the challenge to banish racism, some future historian will have to say that a great civilization died because it lacked the soul and commitment to make justice a reality for all men. Again, we have deluded ourselves into believing the myth that capitalism grew and prospered out of the Protestant ethic of hard work and sacrifice. The fact is that capitalism was built on the exploitation and suffering of black slaves. And continues to thrive on the exploitation of the poor, both black and white, both here and abroad.
Today, we light our chalice, hoping that together we can break the cycles of discrimination, violence, and bigotry that have characterized our country's racist history.
Today, we light our chalice, knowing that we must lead with love wherever we go. We must surround ourselves with the love of God and the universe. That is the only way we will come out of this with our humanity intact.
And now we're going to join in singing together, "There Is More Love." The lyrics will be appearing on your screen.
right there. There is more joy somewhere. Now is the time to greet our neighbors.
And we'll call you back with our bell. And now we have our story for all ages.
Anti-Racist Baby by Ibram X. Kendi, illustrated by Ashley Lukashevsky. Anti-racist baby is bred, not born. Anti-racist baby is raised to make society transform. Babies are taught to be racist or anti-racist. There's no neutrality. Take these 9 steps to make equity a reality. 1. Open your eyes to all skin colors. Anti-racist baby learns all the colors, not because race is true. If you claim to be colorblind, you deny what's right in front of you. 2. Use your words to talk about race. No one will see racism if we only stay silent. If we don't name racism, it won't stop being so violent. 3. Point at policies as the problem, not people. Some people get more while others get less because policies don't always grant equal access. 4. Shout. There's nothing wrong with the people. Even though all races are not treated the same, we are all human, anti-racist baby can proclaim. 5. Celebrate all our differences. Anti-racist baby doesn't see certain groups as better or worse. Anti-racist baby loves a world that's truly diverse. 6. Knock down the stack of cultural blocks. Anti-racist baby appreciates how groups speak, dance, and create as they choose. Anti-racist baby welcomes all groups, voicing their unique views. 7. Confess when being racist. Nothing disrupts racism more than when we confess the racist ideas that we sometimes express. 8. Grow to be an anti-racist. Anti-racist baby is always learning, changing, and growing. Anti-racist baby stays curious about all people and isn't all-knowing. 9. Believe we shall overcome racism. Anti-racist baby is filled with the power to transcend, my friend, and doesn't judge a book by its cover, but reads until the end. I wonder, which of these 9 steps are hardest for you to remember? Open your eyes to all skin colors. Use your words to talk about race. Point at policies as the problem, not people. Shout, "There's nothing wrong with the people." Celebrate all differences. Wrong with the people. Celebrate all differences. Knock down the stack of cultural blocks. Confess when being racist. Grow to be anti-racist. Or believe we shall overcome racism.
As we prepare for our offering today, we want to remind you that our Share the Plate recipient for the month of January is the Jubilee Fund, created by Faith Choice Ohio. Faith Choice Ohio elevates the moral power of faith communities to expand abortion access and to advance reproductive health, rights, and justice.
And we know the choir is going to be singing for the offertory, so if you want to come on up while I am giving the next piece of information, giving to First Church is easy. You can text the word GIVE to 513-717-7373, or you can go, if you have access to Breeze member system, you may click Give Now, or you can give online at firstuu.com. You can also write a check to First Unitarian Church and mail it to 536 Linton Street, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45219. If you want to give to Faith Choice Ohio, write Faith Choice Ohio or FCO in the memo line of your check. If this is your first time with us, please let the virtual plate pass you by. Your presence is gift enough to our church.
As you listen to the offertory, be aware that our flowers today are given by Scott and Pat Kelly in gratitude for the courage and vision of Martin Luther King Jr. and of all civil rights activists, past and present.
Justice will come.
We now have a congregational song that we're going to do, and it's our anthem that the congregation is going to participate in, and it's Ella's song performed by Sweet Honey and the Rock. So they're going to be on the screen, but we're going to sing along with them, and they're going to encourage us to join them. So let's participate.
This next song that we're going to do with the choir is called Ella's Song. It's named for Ella Baker. Ella Baker was a staunch fighter, a staunch advocate for young people and their involvement in the civil rights movement, one who would sit for hours and listen as young people discussed and debated strategies for how they would move next in whatever direction they decided they wanted to go. These are Ella Baker's words. They were set to music by Bernice Johnson-Regan, Ella's Song.
Now these are some very strong words we're saying here, so it means we need everyone to sing with us. The chorus. I'm going to teach you the chorus. I want you to sing it back to me. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Now, we believe in freedom cannot rest. We believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. That's good, but it's weak. There's a lot of things going on in the world right now. There's a lot of freedoms being threatened. Think about it. Here we go. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Good. Now Carol and I will sing the verses, and when it's your turn, come in nice and strong. Ready? Whenever you are. Until the killing of black men, black mother sons is as important as the killing of a white man, a white mother son. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. No, no, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. You know, that which touches me most is that I had the chance to work with people, passing on to others that which was passed on to me. To me, young people come first. They have the courage of where we fell. And if I could but shed some light as they carry us through the gale, we who believe, come on, we who cannot rest. Say it like you know it now. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand and fight and is the only way I struggle to survive. I'm a woman who speaks in a voice, and I'll be heard. At times I can be quite difficult. I'm bound to no man's word. Come on now, we who believe, yes, we who believe in
Born Sabura Wilson many years, not that many years ago in Detroit, Michigan, she is the only daughter of an accomplished political scientist, Dr. Carter Wilson, a retired educator and administrator, Dr. Gwendolyn Wilson. She continues their legacy of education as a school administrator, specializing in urban and multicultural education. She is a proud alumni of Tuskegee University and one of the founders of Blue Haven, Cincinnati. She is a mother of 4 and a grandmother of 5, and a sister to all of us, Sabura Wilson.
On August 28, 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King began his speech at the Washington Monument with the opening, "I am happy to join you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation." And I too am happy to be before you today to honor the legacy of Dr. King and reflect his work towards freedom and equality in our nation. Often when we think of Dr. King, we think fondly of his dream, a dream of little black boys and girls hand in hand with white boys and girls. Was that his dream? Have we realized his dream? 12 years earlier, Langston Hughes wrote about dreams as well, and he pondered, as I'm sure Dr. King did. In his poem Harlem, Hughes wrote, "What happens to a dream deferred?" As we reflect upon the legacy of Dr. King on his day, let's do so with an open and earnest look at his dream as shared on that day 60 years ago, as well as where we are today and what happens when dreams are deferred. On that historical day, Dr. King began, 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today, signed the signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This is what happens when you don't have coffee before service. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. On that day, 60 years ago, Dr. King shared that position. So as I read his speech today, I will take liberties and say 160 years ago, so we can juxtapose what was true then with what is true now. What was his dream? Have we realized his dream? Dr. King went on. 160 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 160 years later, the Negro still lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 160 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. With his words, exile, languished, crippled, manacles, shameful, he paints a picture of injustice with a dream in mind. A dream of more than just hand-holding and standing side by side. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Dr. King continued. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. 60 years ago, Dr. King dreamed of a promise fulfilled that was grounded in the promises of Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Paine. Paine expressed in his book, Agrarian Justice, the belief that freedom required positive government investments to enhance the pursuit of happiness. A government committed to robust investment in education, not just K-12, but higher education, and not one at such a high cost that it reduced graduates to highly educated serfs indentured to Wall Street as they pay off student loans. A government guaranteed by all Americans an access to health care. Dr. King continued. But we refuse to believe that the bank of injustice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity in this nation. And so we have come to cash this check, a check that will give upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. This is also not the time for simple solutions, nor is it the time to turn to each other in validation. There are promises to keep and miles to go before we sleep. Because we have to wonder, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore, then run? On that day, Dr. King continued, now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit valleys of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. Now is the time to affirm and promote the journey towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. Dr. King went on, it would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of this moment. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. And those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. And there will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt shall continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore, then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Or maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Dr. King went on, but there is something I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads to the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrong deeds. Let us not satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protests to denigrate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of white people, he said. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied with our destiny. And they have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. The check returned was not just for black people, it was for all people. Dr. King dreamed of promises kept, sacred obligations honored, and a freedom not from physical chains, but from a shameful condition. He dreamed of racial justice and equality. He dreamed of a brotherhood based on the reality that none of us are free until we all are free, until all checks are made good. On that day, Dr. King said, "We cannot walk alone. And as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. And we cannot stand still." He went on. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is victim of unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and hotels of the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is that from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs saying "for whites only." We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro in Mississippi cannot vote. And a Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair, I say to you, my friends. And even so, we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow. I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. So on that day, 60 years ago, after Dr. King elaborated on an enormity of a challenge, its breadth stretching back generations, its width encompassing all aspects of the American promise, he shared his optimistic hope for a better tomorrow, a hope of a future worth the hard work ahead. The conclusion of his speech is what we most commonly hear as excerpts or misquotes from Dr. King. Much of us are much more familiar with the ending than the considerable majority of his speech. We do him a disservice to ignore or overlook the substantial significance of his earlier words. To filter and homogenize his dream is a dishonor. He dreamed of a vividly better world for us all. He said on that day, "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Does it sag like a heavy load, or does it explode? 5 years later, with a dream in his heart, he was killed. At the time of his death, he was villainized as a communist who supported a range of public policies that would benefit both blacks and whites, including the foundational concepts of CRT. Derek Bell wrote in the book on civil rights law, Race, Racism, and American Law. Bell claimed that the progress that started to grind to a halt in the 1970s and 80s, less than a decade after his death. Efforts to establish cross-district busing was stopped by Milliken versus Bradley in 1974. Plans for open housing in the suburbs ended with the Village of Arlington Heights versus Metropolitan Housing Development Corporation in 1977. The campaign to equalize funding for public schools was shut down by San Antonio versus Rodriguez in 1973. Set-asides for minority businesses ended at the local level with J.A. Crossan versus Richmond in 1989, and at the national level at Adirondack versus Paynham in 1995. Throughout the 80s, the Supreme Court hacked away at civil liberties, protections for individuals accused of crimes, and by 1987, the court reinstated the death penalty. In 1987, the Supreme Court decision acknowledged significant statistical evidence of racial bias in death penalty cases, and yet the court allowed the executions to continue. The criminal justice system became more punitive in the 1990s with the escalation of the war on drugs. The U.S. criminal justice system became even more draconian and racially biased with the crack cocaine laws and the 3-strike mandatory life sentences. The contemporary assault on CRT is a modern rendition of the assault on Dr. King. Dreams deferred, checks returned. Now is not the time for gradualism. On this day, let us draw nearer to each other in commitment to a beloved community that honors his dream as so passionately compelled us to on the steps of the Washington Monument 60 years ago. Thank you.
For our closing hymn, we are going to sing Lift Every Voice and Sing. So please, if you will rise, if you're willing and able, the lyrics will appear on the screen. Lift Every Voice, the Negro National Anthem written by James Weldon Johnson from the Harlem Renaissance. We're gonna get it out. Just a second. This is a testament to the talent of our music director. And we have closing words, and then we're also going to welcome new members to our congregation today. And you know what? I have misplaced those closing words here. Here we go. Only begun by our dear Reverend Dr. William G. Singford. Spirit of life and love, dear God of all nations, there is so much work to do. We have only begun to imagine justice and mercy. Help us hold fast to our vision of what can be. May we see the hope in our history and find courage and the voice to work for that constant rebirth of freedom and justice. That is our dream. Amen.
And now we will extinguish our chalice by repeating the words on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet. We have a very special event to celebrate today. We are welcoming new members to our congregation. I would like to invite Allison Irwin and 5 of our 6 new members with their church buddies to the pulpit so they can be introduced to our congregation. Allison? Yay, Allison! Woo! And our new members.
You too. This is an exciting time in the year. Exciting for me, exciting for all of us, I know. Thank you for a beautiful service, a wonderful lead-in. Give us just a moment to set up. Hi, everybody. How we feeling? So on behalf of the membership and welcoming team, welcome to our newest members of the church. Their names will appear on the screen, and we'll have their new member buddies step forward to introduce each of our 5 new members who are present, and then I will introduce the 6th who couldn't be with us, and I'll share why she's not here today. And then we'll have a responsive reading and our welcoming ceremony. So we'll start with Katie, yes?
Oh, do I not have to read from my phone? Like,
Up to you, my friend.
oh, like a millennial mess. Yeah.
I forgot one piece of instruction, which is, as you're introduced new members, if you could come forward and sign our membership book, you'll see, you don't need to fill out the rest, but just a signature, which is the formal, you're in.
This is Aaron Baker. Aaron lives in Frankfort, Kentucky, where he spends his time caring for his family and renovating his house. Although he grew up in a Methodist church, Aaron is agnostic. He was raised in a family with a strong commitment to social justice. As a public defender, he has made a career of helping people that others don't always see as worthy of help. Aaron was introduced to the UU Church by his partner, Katie Price, and is joining because his views align with the liberal tradition of the church. Welcome, Aaron.
I'm air traffic control. Patricia, AJ.
All right, so this is AJ Combs. She is a licensed social worker and an individual therapist for adults and children in Middletown, Ohio. Her hobbies include the humanities, especially dancing and listening to music. She is into Celtic culture and loves to attend Irish festivals in the summer. AJ grew up in the Southern Baptist Church community, and she says she was looking for a denomination that better suited her social justice interests, including women's rights. Welcome, AJ.
Linda, Eric, Ashley.
Eric, what? Hold on, let me
Eric was raised in the suburbs of Chicago and grew up attending the Unitarian Church of Evanston. Ashley was raised primarily in the Cincinnati area and didn't grow up tied to any particular faith or church. In 2015, they were married by First Unitarian Church's prior minister, Sharon Dittmar, and they have occasionally visited the church over the years. Their children are Camden, age 7, Amelia, age 5, and Lincoln, age 2. The Crosses say, "We are eager to join this supportive community, a place where we can, as a family and individuals, grow our spirituality, morality, and faith." Welcome, Ashley, Eric, and your 3 adorable red-headed children.
And Philip and Kyle.
Kyle Lewis grew up in Carlisle, Ohio, about 30 miles north of Cincinnati. He attended Presbyterian Church until moving out on his own in 2011. Kyle is interested in all things science and currently works as a scientist at a clinical trial company. In his free time, Kyle enjoys hiking, running, and playing drums. He has played drums in the first UU house band a couple of times and looks forward to playing more. Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you all and welcome. We will share those biographies in the church newsletter if you didn't catch it all. The faces will be here, I assume, yes, for coffee hour, so please come and say hello. Our sixth new member, Carol Walmerdorf, couldn't be here in person today, but she says hello. She is going to sign the membership book. She's currently in New York for a gun violence learning experience. And thank you, and she's watching. Let's all say good morning, Carol. So I'll introduce Carol. She grew up with UU congregations from Rockville, Maryland, Providence, Rhode Island, Athens, Ohio, and most recently, the Gathering of Northern Hills here in Cincinnati. Carol is an equity-focused educator and bit of most everything, she says. She studied African American literature, mechanical engineering, loves and lives for sailing, cooking, justice, family, adventure, mentoring, and the outdoors. She's looking forward to growing and learning more with all of us here at First Church for many years to come. Welcome, Carol. And now, our welcoming ceremony. Of all the faiths and congregations from which to choose, you have freely chosen to make First Unitarian Church your congregational home. We come from many religious backgrounds and beliefs. We come for many reasons. We come to be among supportive friends. We come to worship, grow, make decisions together. We come to share our talents and gifts, our sorrows and our joys. We come for fellowship with this beloved community. Members and friends, have we prepared a place in this house and in our hearts and minds to embrace our newest members into fellowship? If so, please read the responsive reading on the screen.
We have a place for each of you and welcome you with joy. This is a place of friendship and spiritual exploration. We honor each individual search within our shared mission. We gladly share it with you and look forward to the transformations that you will make in us.
We do. Eric, Ashley, Aaron, Kyle, AJ, Carol. As members, we charge you to honor the mission of this congregation. We charge you to treat everyone you meet here with kindness and respect. We charge you to bring your whole selves, to participate in worship and discussion, to share with us, challenge us, and grow us. We charge you to continue your spiritual journey within this beloved community. Do you accept this charge? If so, please say, we do. Then on behalf of the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati, we bid you welcome. Let's all together repeat our mission statement, a recommitment to each other and to our larger world of our common purpose. The words appear on the screen. Our urban Unitarian Universalist community welcomes all with love, supports learning and spiritual growth, serves our wider community, and works for justice, equity, and inclusion. Thank you.
This is absolutely fantastic. It's always great to see our family grow. And with that, we are concluding our service. Zanjira has music to take us out.